Welcome to the Comic Panel, your Fairbanks show for all things comics and comic-related media. I'm Taylon.
I'm Cody.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Shawenta.
And today we're going to talk about some news that has come out recently. And for our comic this week is God Country by Donny Cates. So, Jake, take it away.
So Olivia Wilde was hired by Sony to produce a Spider-Woman. I can't remember if it was TV show or movie, but so far that's all they have. Or it was rumored to be a Spider-Woman movie or TV show. And then earlier this week, Sony revealed that they were also producing a Silk move. I believe it was movie. So that could be the same project, or it could be separate. If they are separate, it seems like they're at least to people who don't know that much about like Spider-Woman and Silk in comics, like that they could be pretty similar. And so like Sony is kind of like cannibalizing their own market. But
you mean like if they are different, they seem like they would be very similar in their product, kind of thing? Like
yeah, kind of.
Show that they would make?
At least like to... Because like this would be the first time that those characters have been in a live action movie or series. So like they're probably not gonna show all the stuff that makes them different to like hardcore comic fans. Or not even like that hardcore fans, but fans who like consume comics on a regular basis, like and know that those characters are different. If you're just describing those characters, they're just both female characters with spider attributes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's weird to me that like I don't even know what to do with Spider-Woman because it's like she like excuse the light pun, but she's been weaved into Spider-Man lore. But like basically she had nothing to do with Spider-Man before. And so it's kind of like I don't know. It just seems weird to like even franchise her, and she's like kind of like, you know, there's been so many times in the character's history where they've like wanted to use like a certain character and then they couldn't, so they just made another identical character. Because like, so Spider-Woman is Jessica Drew, but like also Brian Michael Bendis just created Jessica Jones instead of using Jessica Drew. And then like I think that there's also like a third character that's a lot like her, and it's just like, wow, these characters are the same. And then you throw Silk into the mix, which is actually part of Spider-Man lore, but like very recent Spider-Man lore. And so it's like, I don't know, it's just very confusing.
Gotcha.
But yeah, basically all they did was announce it. They didn't have like concept art or any kind of footage or any kind of casting announcement. Only that, hey, they plan on making it. So that's cool, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing for me too, is that like, you know, basically they've been like floating around these rumors for years at this point, because like for a little while when like, you know, we still had the Andrew Garfield movies coming out, it was like, oh yeah, they're gonna do a Silver Sable movie, they're gonna do a Black Cat movie, they're gonna do a Sinister Six movie, they're going to do I'm trying to think, like, yeah, there was a Silk movie. There was rumors of an Aunt May movie. I think those are all dead now.
Yeah, pretty sure those are dead, but I guess not.
I don't believe that Aunt May one. I feel like that was...
Nothing's been announced. Okay, like, you cannot believe in the Aunt May show all you want, but they did make, you know, Pennyworth.
Okay.
Pennyworth was, like, pitched and made and sold. And people watched it, I guess.
Yeah, but he went to war.
Yeah, but you could retcon Aunt May to go to war, too.
That's a hard sell. For
She
me.
could have been a nurse in World War One. Who knows?
I don't know about that.
Gosh. For those that don't know, Pennyworth is about Alfred Pennyworth, Batman's butler. Yeah. That's a whole show that exists. But anyway, so yeah, basically yeah, and then also like I don't think that these ever reached the stage of being even confirmed, but there was talk of an Aunt May movie because there was Aunt May comics that were really, really bad that were about like basically her as a teenager and like it was like a love it was a love triangle with the
Osborn.
Uncle Ben and Peter's father.
Wait, what?
No, not Norman Osborn, Peter's father.
Man,
That's
that was
weird
great.
and gross.
Yeah.
Isn't that just okay? Isn't that just worse Riverdale though? Or not Riverdale specifically, but like worse Archie comics?
But the Archie comics actually had romance in them. But like, that was the whole point. This is like.
Also, too, are they trying to say that Aunt May? Are they trying to say that Richard and Uncle Ben were? I thought they were brothers. Or is it? Are they aunt?
Yeah, they were
uncle?
brothers.
So wait. I don't even.
No. They were
That's
brothers.
Weird. That's weird.
They were close in age.
That's weird.
It's not that weird.
No.
It's pretty normal.
To have two brothers pining over the same women, like that's weird.
Oh yeah, that's not
That happens
like
in movies all the time.
that has happened in reality. That doesn't make it less dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also in the comic there was like even like the idea that Aunt May could have been Peter's actual mother.
Actual mother?
Yeah.
That's scandalous.
Yeah, it was
Did the comics ever give a reason that like Aunt May and Uncle Ben never had like their own kids?
I don't think so. I don't know. Like maybe Uncle Ben couldn't, but like I don't think that they would have. Like,
I'm not
given
saying that
as
like your
reason,
relationship is
you know?
only like viable if you have kids, but like
Uh-huh.
if they were married for the same amount of time that Peter's parents were married, then like it seems odd that they don't have kids, but
Gotcha.
Or at least that it wasn't brought up.
unless
Yeah.
oh no, he's a clone. He's not one of their kids. Yeah. All right, never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, though,
God.
yeah.
Country.
So, is there anything else though?
Any other
God Country.
news? Oh, there was some like regular comic news. They announced some different like comics that are coming out in November. Archie Comics is officially on hiatus until at least the end of this year, which is funny that I mentioned them earlier. But
Wow.
Gotcha.
yeah, if you like are
Yeah.
Never mind.
yeah, if you're who are Archie Comics for? That's what I want to know.
Archie Comics fans.
Yeah, but who makes up that demographic? Because you can just say that, but who makes up that like wedge on the pie chart?
That dude that dated Penny from How I Met Your Mother.
Leonard?
No.
Oh,
He was
the dumb
he was the
one.
one-off. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Zach.
Oh. Yeah. Sure. Okay, I guess.
How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
did I
gonna-
say How I
gonna-
Met Your Mother? I meant Big Bang Theory.
Okay, I was like, who is this Penny?
Uh,
I I know exactly who you're talking about now.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, though. Yeah. Yeah, but also, like, who's to say that there is a wedge? Maybe Archie Comics fans are a diverse group of
no, I'm just
men
saying, like,
and women and
of
children.
Consumers of comics, like, primarily chooses
Like a
DC,
franchise.
primarily chooses Marvel, Image, and then, like, that tiny little wedge, which is Archie Comics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like the latest
Yeah, I
reboot
guess-
of Archie
okay, so you're-
Comics was like trying to diversify that group, so they're like, this is for everybody. That's why we've updated it with this new fresh look and made it completely about nonsense and very vague.
Mm.
My opinion.
What would you say?
Yeah.
What would I, if I wanted to view that new look? What do I look up?
I mean, they were switching between different artists. They used the artist who does Saga at one point.
Yeah,
that
he's
was very
slumming it.
interesting.
Staples.
I think I'm looking at some right now.
Yeah, I know they
Yeah,
did.
Mark
look at
Wade?
new Archie
Mark
comics.
Wade.
Oh, they got Mark Wade?
What? Mark Wade
How do
apparently
they-
did.
How do they
Apparently
have
did
the
Archie
money
going
to
on.
hire Mark Wade?
It's Archie Comics.
What? Yeah. I mean, Archie Comics is a big deal.
For
It doesn't
who?
feel like a big
Who
deal.
buys
because, like,
these
they don't have-
comics?
Okay, I bought it.
Okay,
I
okay,
would buy
but
them
you have
before
to-
the
okay.
reboot. I really like that nostalgia stuff.
Yeah, also it's like it's not just about like, you know, who buys them. They have a general presence in comic history, you know? So they have historic weight to throw around, not new money weight.
Yeah, like it was weird. I heard someone once refer to like you know, Evangelion and the two girls from that. I don't remember their names. I will say them and they will be said wrong. So
Okay.
the red-haired one and the blue-haired one, and they're like super popular in Japan. There's like beyond the show, like people just buy figurines of them in any outfits or whatever. They're crazy popular. And somebody said, "Oh, they're like the Betty and Veronica of Japan," and I was like, Betty and Veronica have that kind of like.
Okay, but you can't buy a waifu pillow of
Mhm.
Betty or Veronica.
You haven't looked. I'm sure you can. Whether it's official is another thing.
Yeah.
So okay,
True.
so God Country, by Donny Cates.
This is God country. Yes.
Not how the song goes, but all
It
right.
isn't? Are you sure?
It's
Yeah.
because the song is
Also-
God's Country with an apostrophe S. This is God Country
Gotcha. Okay.
without an apostrophe S.
All
Mm.
right, gotcha.
Yeah. Also, Talon, in the room that you're in, now you have like the what's the word? Like the acoustics of that room makes you sound more like Jake did in the episode, the Pluto episode. You're like when you say like God's country, it's like booming. I'm like, whoa.
Okay, all right. I'll learn to speak.
Yeah. You have the voice of God now.
Oh, okay.
You've got it. Yeah. The power of Grayskull.
All right. God Country. The words were done by Donny Cates. The art by Jeff Shaw. The color by Jason Wordy. Letters and design by John J. Hill. And variant covers done by Gerardo Zaffino. Yeah. And so this story is about a family, and the story was about a family who's the grandfather of the husband of family got this sword and became a really powerful person, pretty much indestructible.
I mean, as the story says, it's not really a story about a sword. The story is about the fact that this man, he's probably I would consider the patriarch of the family, the grandfather.
Mhm.
He's deteriorating in health. He's aggressive. He's got Alzheimer's. He can't remember who his son is half the time. And then this magic sword is introduced.
Right. That makes his Alzheimer's go away. Yay! After
Which is
only when he's
convenient.
Yes.
Normally, I wouldn't consider swords to be healing, but it's nice that it healed him just enough to not be an Alzheimer-ridden old man.
Yes. but not. It didn't just do that. It also made him pretty invincible.
I think it mostly, at least physically, just reverted him to something 20 years ago, and then also reverted his mind, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they say the sword. I can't remember the sword's name at the moment.
Valofax.
They compare it. Okay, Valofax. But they pretty much say it is the sword that is all swords. So every sword you can think of that exists, I guess, is this sword. So it has all those powers.
Every sword ever written about, every sword ever sung about, every knife in your cabinet or whatever, a cupboard, is Valofax. Yeah.
That's a pretty sharp and dull sword.
Now, here's my question.
It contains multitudes.
Does it count if it's is it swords and knives or sharp edges? In which case, broken glass can be considered Valofax.
See, I was thinking paper cuts, but...
I mean, I don't think it super matters, does it? Because it'll just make it sharper. I think the part that really matters is all the different magical weird powers it apparently can have.
What about that YouTube guy who makes knives out of things that knives aren't made out of? Is that also Valofax?
Yeah, probably, yeah. Wait, no, Valofax is not the person, it's the things.
Okay, but then when does it become... This is basically the Toy Story 4 question about when Sporky becomes a toy. When does...
Okay.
If you just call something a sword, is it Valofax?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I mean, along the same lines, there's cursed swords. Is there any curses on this sword?
Would that just cancel out with the, holy swords, though?
Just a bunch of canceling it out. That's why it only has a few powers that are shown in the book.
I mean, yeah, a few, yes, but
they're very good.
Yeah.
But...
Pretty much
they're
solve
good
all the
ones.
world's problems pretty good. I mean,
Yeah, I think that it's more... Okay, so
there you go.
This is what I'm thinking. Basically, so say the name of the sword again, or the god of the sword of...
Yeah, that's the sword.
Valofax, yeah. So Valofax is in whatever blade is used for rightful, basically either rightful defense or rightful attack,
So glass is included.
So, it could be...
Yeah, if you're using the glass to defend yourself...
You could have a glass sword.
Somehow.
You tape a handle to it, maybe.
Yeah.
Just broken glass attached to a stick.
And then I think that... What was the other thing that we were considering, though, before that?
Paper cuts?
Or after that?
If paper cuts were also...
No.
The things...
Oh, no. I mean, as far as curses and stuff, I think that... Yeah, I think that, an individual object can be cursed, but it's about the spirit of Valofax that's basically... it helps, I don't know, it gives slight power to the user, in battle. But it doesn't mean that he himself is cursed because that object is cursed, which I know that even in the book, it goes as far as to say, I'm a blade, not a he, but sometimes pronouns are difficult.
That's why you just go with it.
for inanimate objects.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the only thing I was going to say is at one point he's like, oh, I can only heal you so much. So obviously the sword has healing powers. So it has good powers.
Mm-hmm.
And I would consider curses bad powers. Like I make fire come out of your feet every time you try to walk.
That seems specific. Shawinta, do you have to tell us something?
I just feel like, I guess the sword can tell the difference. It's like, oh, this is good versus this is bad. It gets all the good.
Okay. So go back to the story. So the family, because this book is about the family, we have Emmett Quinlan is the grandfather, guy who wields the sword. We have Roy Quinlan, who is the son of Emmett. Janie Quinlan, who is Roy's wife, and Dina Quinlan, who is Roy's daughter. That is the family. Yeah. And reading this, I was kind of surprised because I didn't expect the grandfather to become uber powerful. I was like, oh, okay, so that's new. But yeah. So basically, a tornado comes into town, starts bringing what I thought was like a ghost and hellhounds. Not quite sure about hellhounds. But yeah, he grabbed the sword and he just like completely eviscerated the ghost. And then the first issue ends with them introducing this god who's like hovering over Earth, wanting to get Valifax back. And then yeah, or
I was gonna say, because it's a short story, it's self-contained in these 6 issues, it's really clear how every single scene mirrors a scene that happens later, as in terms of like, so the beginning being the family is distraught because, once again, Emmett, the grandfather, has gotten into trouble with the police. He's aggressive. He's attacked people, and it's only getting worse. And they're like, oh, you should put him in a home. And the son is very clearly like, no, he needs me, so I need to stay with him. Even when the mother and Dina, his daughter, are like going to leave because it's dangerous. And like the grandfather doesn't even recognize them, really.
Yeah.
And then, that's very clearly mirrored later. But, the tornado comes, and so Emmett saves his son, and the daughter and the mother come back because of the tornado. He saves them from that demon.
Yeah.
I guess I can't talk about it since the issue's later, but yeah, the scenes that are mirror.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I see what you're talking about with that. Also, yeah, as far as like hellhounds, you mentioned that, Talon, and I think that those were just stray dogs that like, basically got aggressive, but then they ran away.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they were probably street dogs, and they were scared by the tornado, so the dude was like, oh crap, the street dogs are coming towards me at a fast pace, and, they're running past him, a sign of something bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I see that now.
But yeah. But also, so let me see if I can find it. I think this is in the 2nd issue. There is, let me see if I can find it. There's a reference that like, it's a reference to Jack Kirby, and I think that this book references Jack Kirby a lot. Okay, actually it might be a lot later. Yeah, okay, it's an issue. It's at the beginning of issue 3. But yeah, it's like a couple of pages in. There's a scene where Roy is talking to Janie, and they're inside the family house, and above the small little TV is a poster of the New Gods from DC Comics.
Oh, I didn't catch that when I read through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big picture of dark side, basically. Um, and so yeah, I've noticed like basically like all of the gods in this seem like pretty, and also like he even uses like the Kirby dots occasionally. Um, so yeah,
The
this is
Kirby dots.
very uh Kirby dots. Yeah, it's like cosmic energy um shown in kind of dot
Uh,
form.
gotcha.
Yeah. I'll point it out when we get to that part of the story. Um
Mm.
but yeah, so that was just really interesting that there's a lot of influence in from Jack Kirby's Fourth World, which is like, like I said, Dark Side, Apocalypse, Miracle Man, um, and all of the new gods.
Gotcha. Okay. I I
Yeah.
hadn't realized that that was a thing, Jack Kirby's Fourth World. And so when
Mm-hmm.
when I was watching Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, the credits ended with for Fourth World, and I was like, I have no idea
Mm.
what this is. I because I thought it was the
Mm-hmm.
Source Wall, like that story, or I guess to be more specific,
Yeah.
Dark Knight's Metal. I thought it was a reference to that.
Oh no. Yeah. It's basically the since Dark Side and all of the new gods were created back in like I think the late 60s, early 70s.
Hmm.
Yeah, it sounds.
Um,
I think it's 70s,
that's when
but
that's
I could be wrong.
Gotcha.
yeah. The only the only like bit of trivia that I know is that Darkseid was first introduced in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. So
That's right. Yeah, because that was also something that Jack Kirby did, wasn't
yeah, yeah. He just created his fourth world throughout like all of the DC series that he was like working on. So like he never had like he just slipped them in there, and then eventually they were like, okay, you can do it, and then it was way easier to pull the trigger on like making a whole book about it because it was already in the other
Hmm.
series that he was working on.
Gotcha.
But anyway, this has been like a longer Jack Kirby tangent than I thought. um
All right. So
yeah,
we
back.
get a look at the god that wants the sword back, and my first thought was Ares, and I wasn't that off.
he? Yeah, he
But
looks
so
vaguely like
Yeah.
Ares. I guess
mm,
he's got the kind of like
I was
helmet
thinking
with a
of
mohawk that
like
like
the
Ares
kilt.
is usually depicted with.
I was
It's
thinking of
like
like the kilt.
it.
No.
It's not specifically a kilt, but it's
Mm.
like that kind of like waist armor that does have some like
Oh, the Roman armor.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
vaguely Roman. Yes, I don't know what you
And
call
Yeah.
that,
and then it was
but
also
it's
the
definitely not a
famous.
kilt. I can tell you that.
It was also the Magneto helmet that gave it away.
Yeah, kind of,
Mm.
but it's not. Uh, I know we've looked this up, like what Magneto helmet is made out of, but it's not made out of that. Whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm sure. So, yeah, so issue two.
But
Oh,
that style. Yeah.
okay.
Sorry, I was just saying that style. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So issue two
But yeah, issue 2.
is a right after he gets the sword, the god comes down from the sky and is like, "All right, I'm here to get this sword back because you stole it, or at least he believed he stole it." And then the
Mm-hmm.
Valofax speaks and says, "No, I'm you. hold act in a way that is worthy of your title, like man up or something. And then Emmett was like, "See, ha!" And Valifax was like, "Nah, hey, you too. You also straighten up." So, uh, so it's relayed to us that Valifax chooses who can wield it. Him. Um,
It's kind of a
and,
Mjolnir situation where it's like whoever is worthy, except also it gets to choose because like the
yes.
Valifax has a consciousness, even though it's stuck in the sword.
Yeah. And so,
Well, I wouldn't say he's stuck in the sword.
I
He
mean,
is the sword.
he never like
Just-
personifies himself outside of the sword, despite seemingly wanting agency outside of just being a sword.
well, no, he wanted the agency from the thing that, or the person that created him.
Which would be easier if he weren't just a sword.
But he did not
that's
want to
what
be a
he
sword.
is.
All right.
I guess, like, yeah, I think that, like, he just, like, it gets more and more complicated as we use the wrong pronoun. It is a sword. It is the god of swords. And it is totally okay with being a sword. It just wants to be able to choose how it's a sword and how it gets used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah.
The god's name is Aristus. Aristus?
Yeah, I'd say
Probably.
Aristus, god of
Yeah, Aristus.
war, blood, and honor.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, the god of blood. What? That's ridiculous.
But yeah, he also gives like this is like I think our first introduction to like the greater world of like gods outside of Valifax, because he also says he's the heir to the throne of always, firstborn son of Atum, who is eternal lord and
I
high
read it like
father
Autumn.
to some thousand realms. So yeah, I never got like a super great idea on how to pronounce that because there's what I believe is known as an umlaut over the U. So
okay.
I don't know how that's not pronounced.
You say Ulau?
Umlaut.
Umlau. Okay.
It's
That's right. I forgot about those, but I think that means that the vowel that is the the vowel that has it on it is said as a hard sound, so it would be atum, I guess.
Because he is a tomb.
Because it's
a
like
funny little play
the
on
thing that I
words.
always remember. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Aristus comes and Valifax basically tells him, or he realizes that Valifax chose to be there, and so he and Emmett decided to take a walk. And Emmett was saying, I don't want to give up this sword because, or well, no, he's saying I don't want the sword, but I want to be able to remember my family. Right? And Aristus was like, yeah, if you give up the sword, you're gonna go back to the way you were. Sorry, there's not really anything I can do about it. And then Emmett was like, okay, fine, then I'm keeping the sword. And Aristus responds with saying, okay, your choice, but I'm afraid the next time we meet, we will not be allies. He starts to go off, and then, or go away. And then he turns around and he's like, hey, oh, also, you need to give me like your intentions, declaration of intent. And he's like, all right, yeah, I got a message for you. So then he goes to his father, whose Atum. Aristus' father is Atum. How do they describe him? The High Father and God of the Kingdom of Always.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Long, kind of drawn out title that basically amounts to kind of nothing, but
right. Yep. Oh, King of 1,000 Realms, something like that.
yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, yeah. So he goes to his father and he's like, all right, got a message. This is kind of like a declaration of war in their language, but his language or his statement is come and get it. And then,
which is, yeah, we haven't mentioned it yet, but this story takes place in Texas.
mm-hmm.
And so that specifically is a thing about the Alamo, because like a little bit of Texas history, specifically about the Alamo. The Alamo had this cannon, and the Mexican government didn't want them to have the cannon. So the people who were at the Alamo said, come and take it. And then they did, and everybody died.
Oh.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
and that's where
then.
Remember the Alamo comes from. Because you gotta remember the Alamo.
See, I always learned about that in like history classes and then immediately forgot. Probably because it wasn't explained very interestingly. It was just all like, politics and the Spanish government and Texas
something Mexico, something Texas, and then America
we
happened.
Them, and then they came over and kicked our asses for some reason.
Yeah, the history of the Alamo is technically very interesting, but because it's so steeped in like weird Texan lore, it becomes like way less interesting.
I should say, I think my favorite part of the issue, of course, is when he's with what's the god's name again? But Emmett's with the god, and they're talking in another area away from the family so they can talk more plainly. And the god's like, oh my god, it's so beautiful here. What do you call this region? He's like, it's Texas. He's like, so you are from the realm of Texas.
Yes.
Is Donny Cates from Texas? I
could remember what that's. I don't know for sure, but I think he is from the South.
Because like there's a
general.
I'm trying to build a through line in my head of like different I don't want to say fetishizations of like Texas, but like Preacher has a little bit of that, but that's from a bunch of like writers who are not American at all. And so
it does say he was born in Texas.
It's well then I guess that kind of explains it. It's like okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think he lives in Austin.
Okay, that explains it a little more.
Because I'm trying to remember. I know that he was like in charge of the Absolute Carnage story, but
I think that also took place in Texas. Oh no, it was. Did it? Texas or New Mexico? It was like a little town in one of those.
Because I'm just trying to remember. Like I think there was Scarlet Spider. The series. I don't know if he
Texas.
That, but
he was in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if Donny Cates wrote that or not though. But now I'm like, maybe. All of this, there's enough of a connection possibly. But anyway, so yeah, this guy likes him some Texas. He lives there.
Yeah, if we didn't tell you now, you'd understand by the end of this book that he was from Texas or had an obscure, weird fascination with Texas.
I mean, yeah, isn't
Yeah.
one of the first things Emmett does after, I don't remember when he does exactly, after talking with God or before, where he's like, they're like, well, we gotta leave now. His family's like, we're safe, but for how long? And he's like, no, I'm not leaving. This is my home. And there's like, it's rubble. And he's like, not anymore, and rebuilds it with the sword. And as the granddaughter says, well, he rebuilt it, but why is it still broken? It's just such a rundown house.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting thing for me because when I got to that part of the story, I imagined that it was like, oh, okay, so part of like, at least like that part of the sword's powers was like basically it can only do as much as his memory could, like, remember how the house was. So he never remembered it as, the door working. But then that wasn't really expanded on. So I'm kind of like, or maybe not. Maybe that's just how he rebuilt it. I don't know.
See, that's the thing. Did the sword rebuild it for him based on his memory, or is the sword just like giving him some telekinesis powers and he was like hammering away within a few seconds? Very fast, but
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That was a confusing part for me by the end. I was like, aha, I know how this works. And I was like, nah, they didn't give me any indication.
Nah, I think most of the things in this story aren't meant to be explained. It's more for the vehicle of the main thing. Family.
Right. Yeah. Give me more lore to chew on.
So the writer of
yeah.
Scarlet Spider is Christopher Yost, but he was born in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, okay. Whatever. I just thought because he wrote Carnage, but yeah. So then, like, basically after that whole like the talk that they have, then there's like a very like peaceful moment. It's like everybody's recovered from like the tornado and then the god like coming to attack and stuff, and it's like, okay, now we'll look at like bugs and stuff and lightning bugs.
I mean, they're as happy as you can be in a house in the middle of nowhere, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, but they choose to live that way with a house in the middle of nowhere. They'd be unhappy if they had neighbors.
Yeah.
Also, I just noticed that on the page, it's like basically the page where Volifax like starts talking to the granddaughter. There's a giant spider on top of the roof of the house that I didn't notice. Like
page before I was talking to
on playbooks, it's page 64. Yeah, it's like I'm like, whoa, like I don't think
it's actually a giant spider. I think it's just like zoomed in
perspective.
But no, because it's like if you look at the whole page, it's one image, that's segmented into 3 different panels.
Yeah, okay, but just like imagine it in motion. They just kind of like it's just like a pull out while the dialogue is going on.
I
don't think it's a giant spider.
I thought that was a giant demon spider.
I mean, it could be a demon spider.
Yeah, it could be, but if it was, then why didn't they mention it at all later?
Yeah,
because that was just hinting at.
I'm unhappy when I see regular spiders. I can't imagine being around a demon spider.
That reminds me of that. I've never seen it, but like the title of that movie, that's one big ass spider. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I'm okay. Anyway, moving
Is it
on.
about spiders?
Hmm?
Is it about spiders?
Giant spiders.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a movie about giant spiders.
Really,
Not
all in
King
the
Kong.
title there.
The-
Not about. Oh,
The
Peter
ti-
Jackson's King Kong with the giant bugs.
yeah. The title of the movie is something along the lines of "That's one big ass spider."
I guess I haven't seen that one. I've seen like the title Arachnophobia, but
Okay.
which does feature several very large spiders.
The spiders towards the end, which are just like puppet spiders, very obviously.
Still don't like it. Too many legs, too many eyes. Don't like it.
Gotcha.
Anyway, the spider that was in one panel.
Yes,
didn't
has
do anything.
drawn this much controversy.
I don't know if it's controversy. It's just a tangent that we can all go off of.
All right, and so Dina goes in to talk to her mother, and Roy comes out talking to his father, and then gets attacked by a zombie. Gets bit by a zombie.
Undead. Yeah.
It undead. Yeah, but like he was pretty unfazed.
He survived really good from that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was expecting Valifax to be like, oh, let me heal him for one panel or something, but he was just like, hey, stop that, and like punching the undead.
Yeah. As if it was like a spider that bit him. You know? And although he does collapse on the ground, so he punches the undead and then he falls. And
Well,
then,
yeah, it's I was just gonna say adrenaline.
Oh, gotcha.
Mm.
So then,
Yeah, I guess
oh,
I was just gonna say I guess that makes sense, but I was a little bit like surprised that he didn't we don't even see him with like bandages, but granted, at the end of the book he he is part of the action, but it's just I expected that to be a bigger bite.
It looks like a pretty bad bite, like on the neck.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bad bite, but I think we're like skipping over a little bit of like, it's a kind of dialogue heavy, but it's like a heart to heart between, recently recovered father and son, where the son's like, I may have prayed for something to take you away. It's like, I think that was an interesting, like, character defining moment for the two, where like, Roy was kind of bitter, but I think Emmett has a good comeback, might be the wrong word, but it's just like prayers like that don't get answered. I thought that was a scene that like impacted me more than like, weird stuff fight.
Yeah, the emotional lead up of Emmett walking in on his son admitting that, his dad Alzheimer has gotten so bad at the time that he was wishing that something would happen to him. Like, he didn't want to do anything, but, put him in a home or whatever. He wanted to stay with him, but at the same time, it was putting such stress on him. And, I mean, Emmett is a little bit aloof at first because, his son is like, you can't just ignore the fact that you heard me say that. Like, I feel really bad about it. And Emmett's like, your mother hugged you too much.
I was waiting for Jake to say that one. I thought that's where he was going with it.
And his son obviously is like, what the heck is wrong with you? Why have you always been this way? Like, I've never. He saw him playing with Dina, his granddaughter, and doing his best to be fun and nice to her. And he's like, even when I was a kid, he was never like that with me.
Yeah. That's how some grandparents be.
Fathers, but yes.
I mean, yeah, sure.
I don't know. My grandma was definitely way nicer to me than she was to my mom.
Yep. Because she doesn't have to raise you.
And yeah, my grandma and my mom were both super open about that. About like, yeah, I don't. Which, like, I don't know if my mom is bitter about that, but I'll find out in like 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I'd like to hope in most cases that it's like, a gaining of wisdom and not just like, I don't have to deal with you every single day, but I am just a mean person. Like it's like, you actually learned how to like, process how you're feeling in a healthy way so that, you can better interact with people. But, you never know.
I mean, yeah, not everybody's out there having their character arc fulfilled.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not completely sure that like, I mean, the Alzheimer's probably did humble what's his name?
Can you say that again?
What is um the main, basically the main character's name?
Emmett.
Yeah.
Emmett. Okay. Yeah, for some reason all I could think of was Roy's name, so I was like,
okay.
But yeah, I was just saying that I think that the Alzheimer's may have like humbled Emmett a little bit, but other than that, it's kind of like I'm not completely convinced that because the fact that he says your mom hugged you too much, like he hasn't really learned much, which makes sense, but so yeah, I think that he definitely could have had a lot more to learn,
Gotcha.
As far as a character.
Emmett, you mean?
Yeah, Emmett. Yeah.
Gotcha. So right after that fight, Valifax is like, all right, get ready for a fight. And then all of a sudden, the undead just rise up from the ground? Is that...
Well, yeah, it's not just one. Doesn't Valifax like shine a light and you can see just they're surrounded pretty much.
Oh yeah, it's like an army of the undead.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
including
like,
horses.
All right, let's go. Say that again?
Yeah. Oh, I said including horses.
Yeah.
There's undead horses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a fight ensues, and then some of the undead get to the house, and he asks Valifax, hey, they're don't let them get to the house. And Valifax like, focus on the fighting. And then somehow Valifax inhabited the knives that were in the knife holder, and just kind of shot at the undead that were at the window trying to get in.
I mean, if you're god of something, I feel like you have some power over it. Like if you're god of water, you can talk to the streams and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So god of knives better be able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Or blades. That's what I mean.
And then that's when Aristus, his brother, shows up. His brother being Baelgrim. Baelgrim being the god of death and rot. And so so Emmett lunges at him, and he disappears. He turns into a cloud. And then Emmett realizes, oh, he must have gotten to the house. So Emmett runs to the house and only to find that Dina has been kidnapped. And Valifax said she'd been sent to hell, or she's in hell right now. And then Emmett obviously runs after her. Like, all right, we're going to hell. So he's in hell and meets there's a lot of talking that Janie and Roy are doing which I thought in terms of dialogue, this was the most impactful, probably, or at least the dialogue that really made me think. I don't know, like I had to stop and be like, okay, what were they? But anyway, so he's like, He starts praying, and she is like, what are you doing? He's like, what? I'm praying. Well, we need faith at a time like this. And she's like, I can't believe you just saw a god of war just come down, and you're still saying, oh yeah, faith is, you still believe. Like, come on.
She says very specifically, she's like, you think Jesus is going to help this?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and he's like, well, how have you seen these spectacular things and not believe? This is proof. But he kind of wavers because he's like, this is proof of something, right?
something higher.
Mm-hmm. But he didn't go as far as to say this is obviously God. But then we go to Emmett, and he meets up with Bale Grimm, and Bale Grimm's like, hey man, look, so he has the child with him, or Dina, and he's like, look, I want to give you the child, like trust me, this living thing is like ill to me, but I kind of need the sword, my father's legacy is kind of depending on that, and I kind of want, I got the sense that he was like, I kind of want to ruin it, yeah.
Mm.
Like he was,
Yeah,
like he didn't like his father.
That's like, I kind of got that feeling a little bit too, but I think that it was more important to him that, he realized that his father had the power, and so that, like, if he could usurp his brother and, like, take the throne,
Gotcha.
and stuff like that.
I
But
almost
yeah, like,
felt like at certain parts that he was like, look at this is all he has for his legacy. Almost kind of pitiful.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that too a little bit. Like, I feel like almost the two god brothers could be, facets of Roy, even a little bit. Just because it's like, like the Bedgrim is his name, right?
Bale Grimm.
Or Bale Grimm.
Mm-hmm.
He would be more of the side of, like, pity and wanting him to, like, something to happen to his father. It's all like, just give him this, this thing that I know that he wants, and he'll go peacefully, maybe. And then, like, and then Atum, or wait, yeah, Atum, that's the god of war, right?
No.
No, Aristus.
That's the god of always.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, yeah, the god of war one, he is, like, more like Roy's, like, kind of, like, caring and altruistic side a little bit more, but, like, it's all, like, steeped in, like, honor and stuff still too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of feel like,
because Rory was going to stay with his father, make sure that he was, or well, I mean, we kind of already said this, but Rory was going to stay with his father, even though even though Janie felt that his father was too unstable, and he was acting too crazy around Dina, so she was going to leave. But he was like, no, it's my duty.
Yeah, it's like
right.
He's given that ultimatum of, like, who are you going to choose? Your father, who very obviously needs something else, like, but Roy is so obviously clinging to that idea of he needs me, like, this gives me more purpose in some ways. And I feel like that's something that's mirrored with the God of War Arcturus, or whatever his face is. where he's like, he very obviously seems like a kind of nice person, actually, if that can be said. Like, he doesn't seem like he really wants to fight. But his father, is like, you cannot come back without this sword.
Mm-hmm.
I see that. So yeah, then Belgrim brings out Emmett's late wife, Elizabeth, and she's like, "Hey, it's fine, it's okay." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, is this real?" And then Valifax is like, "It doesn't matter."
Yeah, Valifax is like, you need to close your eyes. Like, the moment you see this, you're immediately like being caught in a trap.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it was kind of weird because I was expecting Valifax to say, "No, it's not real. Of course, she's dead." But then Valifax was like, "It doesn't matter." Almost like it to me when I would think a layer of trust, like if the relationship between Valifax and Emmett was built on trust, then at that moment in that context, that trust would have kind of eroded. And I'm like, wait, but it's my wife. She's here. What do you tell me? Right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that, if it, like you said, if a relationship was able to be more established between him and Valifax, then it would have been like, like, I think that Valifax would have realized, a little bit more, a little bit how humans, think and operate, and like, could have chosen his wording a little bit better. But he is very mission focused because that's what he does.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting because obviously Emmett sees his wife. Nothing else matters. Like, he just wants to go back to how things always were in the past. In the past when he was asking for them to fix his Alzheimer's, he was thinking back to like dancing with his wife when they were younger, and so he drops Valifax. Immediately, doesn't matter. He's with his wife, and I think Valifax gets picked up by bed something. the god gets picked up by the god, and Valifax is like, "You're not even worthy," and pretty much, I think like it's almost like he's sucking the power out of him, and because of that, like, all the undead get affected too, including the one that Emmett's wife is, which snaps Emmett out of that. And the part I was going to focus on is when Emmett is like, he's left there without his wife again, and he picks up Valifax, but it's like Valifax starts apologizing to him in that very human way, like, I can't imagine what you just, and he's like, Emmett's like, shut up, like, don't talk to me about this. But I think that was a really interesting thing for Valifax to have like started saying, as compared to like a few scenes ago when they were playing with the granddaughter, and she's like, "Can I play with the toy sword or whatever? Can I play with Grandpa's sword?" And Sword automatic's like, "I'm not your Grandpa's sword. Like, I am, a god of all blades. Like, you don't understand. I'm not a toy, little girl." And she's like, "I don't like this."
Yeah.
It was also in that same scene, Sword was like, or Valifax was like, "I am fighting wars in all planes of imagination, even in planes that you can't even fathom, and ones that you will never visit." It was like very, is it hoity-toity? Is that?
Yeah, it's very haughty.
Yeah, I was like, okay, all right, man, stop being full of yourself.
And as Emmett says, you really don't know how to talk to children, do you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like, I do kind of understand the idea that, like, it's all like, their concept of what he is so diminished, because it's like, wow, like, you don't even know how, like, busy, he is, and how much processing he's capable of as a god, you know, because it's like, yeah, just like he has to process every battle that he's in across like a bunch of different realms, not just on Earth, but like, you know, in like, yeah, in thousands of realms basically, you know, and maybe even other ones that like the Atum doesn't rule.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, it is a lot, but like at the same time, yeah, not appropriate to be talking to a kid that way.
Well, which
Yeah.
I think is why I find that later when he's trying to comfort Emmett, very stark contrast.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I think that like too, like, you know, I think that the scene like right before the page right before that scene where, you know, because basically uh sorry, uh the sword doesn't just kill the god of death and rot. I'm forgetting everybody's name at this point. um
But
I'll
hey,
just
you
be
got his
honest.
title down.
Yeah, yeah.
which is
So yeah,
longer than his name, but go on.
yeah, so the um basically the sword did not kill the god of death and rot, so but it did like significantly depower him into like kind of a husk. And then after Emmett, you know, the illusion of his wife is gone, he like, you know, really just angrily rips into the god, you know, who's now depowered, just like bloody, you know, punches until he is destroyed. And I feel like that is like, you know, it's that loss that like, you know, also like fueled his rages when he was, you know, suffering from Alzheimer's, um and like, you know, kind of going on like berserk rages where it's just like, you know, he knows that he's lost something even if he doesn't know what it is, you know, and he can't really control that. So like I thought that was like kind of interesting that you know, just that like that even though he was like cured, that was something that was like, you know, he lost something again, so he's going to be violent again.
Yeah, you're confused. You don't know what's going on, so you become frustrated and angry.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so he picks up Dina and then carries her back home, and it's all yay, she's back, great. And then Emmett's off in the background being like, "I'm glad you're happy, but it's time this ends." And then
Mm-hmm.
another tornado shows up, and that's the end of 4. And then when we transition to 5, we get a bit of background of how Valifax was created. It was earlier said that a tomb built Valifax from the heart of a dying star or a dying planet, something like that. And then the person telling the story was like, well, actually, there's a little bit more context to that. It wasn't dying before he ripped the heart out.
Hmm.
So he ripped the heart out and then it was dying. And then he used it, a tomb, used it in many wars, and it had slain many people, species, that whole thing. And then also,
Mm-hmm.
it was said that Valifax couldn't go against his maker. I keep thinking her. Valifax couldn't do anything against his maker. I believe is when that was talked about.
Yeah, the line is like verbatim, standing up to the one who made you. Turns out it's as hard for swords and gods as it is for the rest of us. Which I also thought that was a interesting line that kind of like nailed on the head that like it's a story about family, not about a magic sword.
Yeah. But what's also interesting, getting into um, kind of the swords, I guess you could say humanity. I'm not sure if you would say that, but like the narrator tells the audience, "Hey, don't judge the sword. They were just doing what their master was telling them to do, right? They couldn't just say no to that." So I thought that was interesting. Sword has as some.
Yeah.
It's either that the sword has the knowledge of like right and wrong, or the person narrating kind of personified that
Well, yeah,
sword.
I think.
I don't know if that's the right phrasing.
Well, I think that like basically it was set up and this is like whether you look all the way back at the actual writer of the comic book or you're like speaking to the narrator in universe, it's like we just had this scene where the sword made the choice basically to defeat the god of uh death and rot and stuff, and like so it's like why obviously you can see that a tomb isn't a good god, so why didn't he like do the same thing? And it's like you have to realize that it's a little different in this context, that one, he was his maker, and two, he was just like, I kind of perceived it as like he was a little bit younger too, and so it was like
the
a much
narrator or the sword?
or the sword.
Oh, okay.
And so like basically it was like much more impressionable to being like, yeah, this is okay, this is what I was created for, you're my creator and I am a thing.
Oh, gotcha.
mm-hmm. um so yeah, but like I think that the main purpose of saying that was to like put it into contrast of like he's learned now that it is better to stand up for what's right than to not.
So then we get a tomb who tells Aristus, "Hey, all right, get the sword back. Belgrim failed me, and so now it's all on you." Um, yeah, and so he says, Aristus says, "But father, he can't be harmed because he's wielding uh, Valofax, which uh, plays into it's either supports the idea that he's invincible, or is in contrast to what happens to him later. Whichever one you want to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And a tomb is like, all right, quit your whining, okay? I'm not just gonna let you. I'm not gonna send you down there without some help. I'll give you. And what's the name? I can't remember the name. Thor's axe. I will give you Thor's axe.
Except it's not Stormbringer at all.
Okay, yeah, Stormbringer.
It's just like cooler armor, which reminds me of like Marvel's Eternals, basically, and like how they are at least have been portrayed in what I've seen.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Or that you're thinking of the Celestials, Jake.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it gets confusing. Celestials, Eternals, Inhumans.
Basically, yeah, just all synonyms.
Yeah.
But anyway, he comes down to Earth and fights Emmett. And a big battle wages. Fists were traded. Blows were sent. and scars were left on the plains of Texas because this battle was so great. It was the battle heard round the world. That's
Or at
how
least
great.
around Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
it seems to be mostly in Texas.
Hmm.
But like, there's proof that it happened. Or the narrator says, like, I wasn't there, but there is proof that it happened because I actually don't remember what he said. What was the proof?
Yeah,
I
you
think
can
the
like
proof
see
is just like,
scars of their faces, I think.
Mm,
yeah, it's either that or just like ask anybody who was in Texas then and they'll tell you what I'm telling you.
gotcha. But
Yeah.
yeah, and so um, Aristus throws Stormbreaker at Emmett, and Emmett is like, or Aristus is like, "Ha! All right, Emmett, stay down. There's no way a human could get up from that." And Emmett's like, "Nah, I'm right back up. What you got?"
Yeah, screams come on at him.
Mm-hmm. And so the fight continues, and Emmett wins.
More.
Yeah, just say that.
Yeah.
Emmett wins. Oh yes.
Yeah, he gets
There you go.
he gets both weapons.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But also his shirt is off, revealing his dad bod.
Well, they do that earlier too, but yeah.
Okay.
I would say that's more like a grandpa bod anyway, like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I think that the important part is after he gets both weapons, he is like, he's ready, he's in his fit of rage, again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'll kill you. And then like Dina though is what snaps him out of it.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, I don't need to murder this person just because we were in intense battle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's like I was saying, it's mirroring back to that first scene where he's never really met his granddaughter outside of his Alzheimer's, so he doesn't really know who she is, and he's doesn't even recognize his son in the first scene. So he's like, "Who are you people?" Elizabeth, call the police. His wife who's been gone for a while now, and he says, "I'm gonna kill you people," or whatever. "I'm gonna kill you," and his face is just shrouded in shadow. And Dina has like ran in at that exact moment to see him like that, and she's scared. She's never known her grandfather as somebody not like that. So mirroring back to this scene, him being ready in rage mode and being aware of himself, but not enough to stop himself from being that same person again. Like, I'm gonna kill you. And Dina, who has actually like developed a relationship with him in that time, like knowing her grandfather finally, and she's, instead of running away, she's like, "Grandpa, you don't have to do this," or whatever.
Yeah.
Stopping him from going back to how he was.
This is also where Roy kind of stands up to his father in some sort of way, because he's like, "You're scaring my family, man. All right, this needs to stop." And that's when he's like, "Well, you're right." And he goes off to what it's called, Kingdom of
The Kingdom of Always.
Always. Yes. So he goes off, teleports to the Kingdom of Always, leaving his family behind, and Aristus, who is just kind of, well, he can't go back because his father has some kind of barrier that's put up, keeping him from leaving. So he's just
very
stuck
Silver Surfer.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that happens in Silver Surfer comics. Basically, he's not allowed to leave Earth after he betrays Galactus.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I am not well versed in Silver Surfer.
Mm-hmm. It's just another Kirby connection.
Oh, that's even more
Kirby.
profound. Wait, did Kirby not do Silver Surfer?
Yeah, he did. Well, at least he
Oh,
made, or,
Jack
he did.
Kirby.
Oh.
Yeah,
I thought you
yeah.
meant the Nintendo mascot Kirby.
Ah, yes. Jack Kirby. Um,
I see.
Jack Jack King Kirby of Marvel Comics fame. I think that there's a Kirby Award named after him.
Oh,
I believe there is.
nice.
Yeah. Um.
And so,
Anyway, though. No, sorry. That was all. I guess. Yeah.
okay.
Basically,
So
talking
Emmett
about
goes
Jack
off,
Kirby.
and he. Oh my gosh! I just realized this looks a lot like Asgard. This scene where he's fighting this giant. I don't know what this is. Actually,
Oh, the weird
the Chitauri ship.
serpent-looking thing. I
He's
mean,
in
they
Asgard
call it
fighting the Chitauri.
a
It's
Volghoul,
a
I believe, which is something that
Yes.
Yeah.
eats mountainous scavengers that feeds on the energies of dying gods and godly things, which is like
So
a really
that's like
cool and
everything-
intense thing to put in the last episode or last issue of your comic. It's like, oh yeah, here's this super cool thing that like eats gods. That will appear in like one page of my comic.
No. This also reminds me of that creature that the Guardians of the Galaxy were fighting in the beginning of the second movie. You know,
Oh, kinda.
because Drax goes in and he gets eaten, and he's like, well, "You're dumb. You can't cut from the inside. It's just as bad." But yeah, while Emmett doesn't get eaten, they do make a point to say that this creature also has an impenetrable hide.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we're back on Earth, and Aristus is talking to Dina, saying, "Oh, don't worry, your grandfather's gonna be fine, or it's gonna work out for your family, because you have what my family doesn't have, and that is." Oh wait, no, sorry, that's a different conversation he's having with Janie. Then Janie comes and sends Dina to talk to her father, and then that's when Aristus tells Janie, "Hey, you're gonna be fine, right? Your story will live on because you have an heir."
Which, like, isn't he the heir to his family?
Hmm?
I mean, I think the whole idea is the fact that his family and, like, everything that supports them, the realm they're in, is dying, is part of the problem. But that still was, like, a really weird line to me. It's okay as long as you have offspring
Mm-hmm.
somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
little more non-literal than just like, oh, you have a daughter, but like it's more that like they have a future and like places to go. It's like they
I just
can't
think
really.
the word choice of an heir was very odd. Like, oh, your story will live on or something.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought they were like, well, your lineage will continue. You're not gonna stop you, but our father, he only has me and Belgrim, and that was just me. So,
That's true. Well, it's the whole thing of, like, he said, my father will, blow through all of his sons, like,
Mm-hmm.
just throw them into this mess, and he doesn't care if they, like, all die.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just in pursuit of this idea of a legacy, even though he's killing his legacy, pretty much.
Yeah. So then we go to Emmett, and
Sorry, I was just gonna say that basically, yeah, I think that kind of relates to, like, if the two sons are supposed to both be Roy, then a tomb is also supposed to be the father. And so it's like, basically he realizes that, like, the difference between the two, though, is that, like, one wants the sword to secure their legacy and their power, where the other one just wants to, like, make sure that they're, like, the family is safe, and that, like, that they will, like, remember him well and stuff like that. And so, but he realizes that, like, the maybe bad part of him that needs, like, that is, like, holding on to the past a little bit too hard, needs to be killed. And so, he can't just let go in general. He has to get rid of that part. It's kind of the way that I perceived it, I guess.
Also, so never mind. We'll continue with the story. That would have been a tangent. So yeah, Emmett is fighting a tomb, and it's a pretty even match, despite the fact that a tomb is a god, and Emmett is just a guy with a sword. But then,
I mean, it's not just a sword, but I feel like we've kind of beaten that horse a little bit.
I mean, it's the most magical sword ever, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like calling Mjolnir just a hammer. It's not, though.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, that's how a tomb referred to him. Oh yeah, well, I guess he said more like, you're a nobody.
Yeah, I mean,
so he just happened to have the sword.
He is just a mortal, but he is carrying a god himself. So, yeah.
So, a tomb, it's amazing that if Valofax is the god of sharp things, that he wasn't able to stop these vines from stabbing Emmett. So yeah, these vines kind of tore through him.
Is that what happens?
He survived.
Yeah, he gets kind of like Hela in Thor Ragnarok, where she's got like the spikes coming out. It's kind of like that.
Okay.
And kind of, yeah. After they've stopped fighting for a minute and talk a little bit, but yeah, it's still about they're still fighting technically, even though they're talking. And then Emmett gets stabbed. Atum keeps monologuing.
And then Emmett throws the sword at him. And then he remembered, he was like, oh yeah, I remember a story that Valofax was telling about tearing through the throats of enemies. So he's like, all right, just cut his throat. Now, to me, that panel that showed Atum's throat getting slashed was very confusing because I wasn't sure where. I was like, where is the sword? I don't see it here.
It's just moving real fast.
Yeah, I think basically. Go ahead.
Kind of cut him and then flew up and then cut the ceiling, like cut through the ceiling, causing a cave.
I don't think so. I think it just flew like in an arc, kind of a boomerang. Not a boomerang, really, because those kind of go.
God, 2 weeks in a row we're talking about boomerangs.
Oh yeah. True. I forgot about that. I was like, why does this feel familiar? Anywho, though, Yeah, but I think that it just it kind of Mjolnired back into his hand is all.
Mm-hmm.
Have we mentioned that Mjolnir is Thor's hammer? Marvel Thor's hammer. Well, actually all Thor's hammers, but specifically with that power.
I don't think we mentioned it, no. But I guess I kind of assumed people knew.
Yeah.
Knew that
Anyway.
Mjolnir was a magical hammer?
Thor's magical
Yeah.
hammer, specifically.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Just for anybody who didn't know. But moving on. Yeah. So
Aristus is like, there's a disturbance in the force. My father's about to die. Or something's happening to him.
Well, I think the realm isn't doing too good, and he can probably tell the place that he inhabits.
Mm-hmm.
As a god of war.
Gotcha. He's in every war.
Man, I feel like he would have
so
even
he's like-
more insight then.
He would have more what?
Insight.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. That was just kind of interesting. I didn't think about it. But anyway, go on.
Mm-hmm. And so Aristus is saying, hey, his shield keeping me here on Earth is broken now. So I'm going to go to the kingdom of always. I think you should come, Roy. You're probably going to want to come. He's like, what? Yeah, you should probably just go. But then they go off, and Aristus goes to fight his father, I guess. Because that was...
Well,
and
he
then-
tries to get in between them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then Roy runs to his father, and his father's like... And his father looks pretty bad. Not healed. The opposite. Hurt beyond the sword's ability to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when he's like, they have this father-son moment where Emmett gives Roy the sword, and along with it, all of his memories, all the all the
lessons Emmett learned, triumphs and failures,
right.
all of the things left
Yep.
unsaid. Yeah.
Yep. All the
The
things,
things he could
say.
never say.
Mm-hmm. And then Roy's like, Father, thank you. Or thank you, Dad. And then that's when a tomb just stabs his son, Aristus. He's like, all right, you're in my way. And just before a tomb can go after the sword, Roy teleports him and Emmett away, thus leaving a tomb. It looked like the planet was being destroyed. You get that?
Yeah, I mean, the realm, basically, like, it finally crumbled. He just kept the sword away from a tomb long enough that, it didn't matter. They just ceased to exist.
Gotcha. And then...
which actually, that kind of makes sense. I just realized that, like, basically, because, he killed his last son, the last other god except for himself, but his one title is King of the Gods, but he can't be king of himself. So, by killing his last son, he is no longer the god of what he was.
I mean, the whole reason, like, his son was, like, jumping in was his father's expending so much energy to try to get this sword back when he had used the last of his energy to keep that realm from, like, deteriorating, like everything around it had already.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, using even more of his energy to the point where he can't maintain his own place anymore.
Yeah,
You know.
true.
So and that was revealed earlier in the story that I I don't remember what happened, but something happened. Something came that tried to destroy their world.
Well, no, it said time. Literally, the
Time.
caption
Oh,
was
okay.
time. With all time, all things will deteriorate, and he was not willing to give in to that. So he used the last of his power to maintain the little area around him, pretty much. So everything around it was already just gone. It's a husk of what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
meanwhile, he's obsessed with his legacy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then we see Roy. So diving into the story again, we see Roy, I guess, sending his father into the sun, or
Or
a
at least
sun,
a
maybe
son.
not the sun. Mm-hmm. And then, and in contrast, to what Emmett did, that kind of symmetry Winter was talking about. Roy comes down to Earth again and goes to see his family, and he just chucks a Valifax behind him. He's like, all right, I'm done. And then he goes to hug his family. The narrator says they never saw those gods again, and they never saw Valifax again. And they just kind of like, that's what, and so then Roy told Dina the parts of the story that she didn't know, and then Dina told her children, and her children, and those children told the narrator, and the narrator is now telling you, or he says you. I want to assume that you is their children, or if it's just you as in the audience.
Right.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure is this the same house?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
They're just selling it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they mentioned the door that they have trouble opening.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then months later, they're selling the house, and the narrator says the point of this story isn't that it's a happy story, but it should be told, because when we fight for those we love and we love them back, then those people will always remember us, and we won't ever truly be, or no one will ever truly be gone, and we will become stories. And then that's the end. Roll credits.
Yeah, I didn't expect this to be so self-contained. I thought that it was gonna be like, this big like ongoing thing with like more and more gods and stuff and more like development, and it was like, nope, this is it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually did a little bit of research, and and so from what I can tell, this is it. This is the entire story. And I was kind of surprised because it said volume 1, and I was like, okay, so obviously this is volume 2.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, this was written back in 2017.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, I don't think it really matters to the story at all, and that's probably why they don't mention it, but I'm like, man, is the narrator like technically like talking from the future then? If like, like I could maybe see if this was like, like I mean it really could be just like in the 80s, and we wouldn't really, know any better. Because, like, everybody's just kind of wearing, I don't know, general Texas fashion.
Yeah.
Um,
The narrator, the bubbles of the narrator or the text boxes changed color, like depending on the issue, I think, and that really confused me. I was like, is this a new narrator? Also, there was a lot of slang in like one of the earlier narrators.
Yep, that's what I noticed.
And then later on, I'm pretty sure there was like kind of no slang, and so it's just it was a little bit confusing. But I think overall, it was a really quick read, and I didn't mind that. I think it works as like if this was literature wise, it probably would be like a chapter story, pretty much. And I think it works because every single scene is mirrored. But because of that, because of the fact that it's a short story, and so every single thing has to be important to something that happens very soon afterwards in the space of reading it, it feels a little bit predictable. But in the way that a short story would be, where it's giving you a lesson, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Now, having the context that this is it for the series, it changes what I'm going to say in so much as I understand why it happened, but it doesn't change it in the way that I don't like this. It was very underwhelming for me, and so I was like, but knowing that this is it, like, it makes sense why they left you questions and then answer them really quickly.
That's pretty much what I was trying to say too. Like, it has to be this way. It's a short story. Like, there's a lot of scenes where like there doesn't go into things, like things happen this way and we told you, and it doesn't matter why. It's because sort of the little details get lost.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with. Oh. Sorry, I was just gonna say I agree with that. But at the same time, I'm like, I mean, thinking about it in like, because we're reading it in a collected edition, but it was originally spread out across like 6 months in like 6 issues, and it seems like I feel like I want to judge it a little bit more harshly, in that like it's short, but like a lot can be done in 6 issues, and a lot can be explored.
I was gonna say actually I do not like how the final battle went, because there's a lot of like that buildup of like he's invincible with the Valofax, that's why we want it back, and just this confusing of like, but he can still get hurt. The sword can't fight against its creator, but he can hurt him? Question mark. Like, I guess this will happen this way because we need it to, but
yeah. I also didn't like how the sword defeated Belgrim. I was like, oh, so you don't need him at all.
I mean, how does he kill the main guy? Is that the one where he like gets thrown through his throat?
I mean, that does happen, but that's not like how he dies. Like, he dies by like getting like done into the black hole that they're like circling.
Yeah, that is still, you get stabbed in the throat. That's your sword that you made hurting you.
Right.
I mean, circling back to the thing I said again. Like, I guess. I feel like there's a lot of those little things that were set up to make it seem greater than it was, and it was a lot of like, well, don't think about it too hard.
Yeah, and I'm like, do we get like, basically that at first they're all like, oh, it was just like I feel like we don't get enough, I don't know, justice, I guess, for like basically how evil they ended up presenting a tomb, because it's like at first it's like, ah, yes, it's just the god of like always, it's like, he is, he's Odin, he's Zeus, he's like, any other king of the gods. But then it's all like, um gosh, I'm so distracted now, I've forgotten. um
You were talking about a tomb didn't get justice
oh
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
Oh,
that's
for
right.
like how
Or
evil
yeah,
he was.
because yeah, at first they
Like
were
he was
all
really
like,
mean to his son, and in the end, he just falls into the hole or whatever.
yeah, and then he like,
Yeah,
That's
like
he
not the
also
best way to describe it.
he genocided a star system, and he colonized,
Mhm.
multiple realms. And it was just like, yeah,
Mhm.
he's a bad dude. We're not gonna like really
yeah,
delve
it
into
turns out
that
it's a
though.
bad guy.
I guess it's supposed to be kind of like the tragedy of being remembered always as the villain, right? Like
Mm,
in the story.
I mean, not for no
Meaning, like,
reason.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like the tragedy of he's done all this to make this legacy, and in the end, because he tries so hard in the wrong way to like maintain a legacy of the sword, he hurts all his sons, kills them, throws them to their death,
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me kind of
sabotages himself.
like if you guys have ever watched There Will Be Blood, that is also a story about a father and a son, kind of. It's an adopted son,
That's so good.
but it's like it's about it's Daniel Day-Lewis as an oil baron, and like towards the end it becomes like I dedicated my life to screwing everybody over so I could make money, and now I'm left with nothing. And also, it's a weird saying about drinking somebody's milkshake. It kind of falls apart near the end.
I really like that last scene though.
Like, it's still really good, and it's on Netflix, so people should watch it. But like, it's better than how I'm describing it makes it sound.
Gotcha. So this is what I'll say about God Country. As I said before, it was underwhelming for me, especially considering the high praise that it got.
It did get a lot of high praise. Yeah.
It had a lot of praise, and apparently, it is being adapted into either a TV show or a movie. I don't know. And
I think it could be a movie.
He sent.
I think it could be a movie pretty well. Like if you try to stretch this out into like unless it's like a 6-episode miniseries, then.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And so there was an article saying that Cates had he had finished the script and sent it to Legendary Pictures or Legendary Entertainment, whichever title it is, and that was like in June. And then he discussed that there's going to be a spin-off series, and that article was released sometime in March. Now, reading this story, I'm like, how though? How could you make a spin-off series?
Make it about a tomb
I don't understand.
in the Kingdom of Always.
I mean,
that's the only thing I can think of. Because like otherwise, it's just a super sad story about somebody who has Alzheimer's in Texas.
I'm gonna be real. Like I feel like a lot of the scenes could be summed up in like a page or two, if this was a book textually.
Yeah.
And it would still be like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, real quick though, I will say okay. I did enjoy the art. It was pretty most of the time. I think that sometimes it could be a little unclear, but it was good. And yeah, I think that they did a lot of good detail work. With like both space and like the cosmic kind of side of stuff, and like in the opening pages, like the Texas terrain, all really good. Their faces are kind of weird sometimes, but I don't know.
Yeah.
What did you think about this panel? Right when uh, Roy is right after Emmett died, and he's in Roy's arms. Is that?
Oh, yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I don't even need to find it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I
I thought
liked
that
that
was
one.
weird.
It was a little weird. It was like creating like rack focus inside a comic book,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
it didn't take me out of it.
gotcha.
Um, so I was fine with it.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be reading what is titled as Spawn Origins, but it collects the first 6 issues of Spawn.
Mm, all
So
right,
we'll be reading that next week by Todd McFarlane.
fun. All right, cool. Well, take it away, Talon.
All right, yeah. All right. This has been the comic panel. I am Talon.
I'm Cody.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Shawenta.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.